Hey everyone, this is Toshi Shimada, conductor of the Eastern Connecticut Symphony Orchestra. We have our final of the season concert on April 27th at the Garde Arts Center in New London. It starts at 7:30. We have a diverse pieces in the program. First half is choral work, Joseph Haydn's Lord Nelson Mass. But here today we have a special guest composer with us, and he will be performing his piece called Phoenix. Here's Daniel Perttu. Welcome, Daniel.
Hi, yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you for including me, first of all, in the program, and then including me also in this talk. And I'm happy to be here.
You know, we have talked before. You have interviewed me before. It was other way it was around, but I, always wanted to perform your piece, and then what piece to start our audience? And this is not going to be the last time. It's going to be the beginning of our presenting your piece. And so, and I was going through everything, and then what great way to start was Phoenix, because I was thinking about the Firebird appropriately to pair with it. And there's other Firebird related piece, like John Williams wrote the little film piece called Fawkes the Phoenix from the Harry Potter, because there's a little sugar on the program. But I'm quite excited to perform your piece, Phoenix, Dan. I will be asking about you some of the other activities, but for now, I'd like you to talk about the Phoenix for the audience who are really excited to come hear your wonderful work.
So yeah, thanks. This piece is obviously on the myth of the Phoenix, but it is meant to be a sort of a programmatic representation. So the myth of the Phoenix starts off when the Phoenix is nearing the end of its 1,000-year life cycle. And it is in a, quote, fallen world, if we want to use that language. And at the end of its life cycle, then it will fly back. It will then it'll sing a beautiful song, and then it will be reborn. And so what happens in my piece is there is the opening, which is pretty calamitous. You know, it's a very sort of dark and brooding opening. People might hear influences of Mahler, possibly of Vaughan Williams, possibly of parts of the Firebird even. I take my inspiration from the late Romantic era, but I also infuse some sort of new approaches to harmony, all still being very much about the melody. I like melodies that people can sing and remember.
Yeah. That's get performed often if you write the pieces right now, you know.
And so then over in the middle of the piece is when the Phoenix sings its song, so to speak. And you will hear the song in the flute, accompanied by the harp. And the flute and harp duet is the song that it sings as the sun is rising. At the end of this section, then there's a Bartok pits, a snap pits in the strings. It has that snapping sound that is meant to convey the spark. And the spark then is what starts the Phoenix being engulfed in flames. And then there's the rebirth. And the rebirth is the music from the beginning comes back, but it is transformed so that it's not as dark, it's not as despairing, it's much more eventually uplifting.
I like the middle section, the flute and harp section. That's beautiful. But of course, sandwiched by is very exciting opening and then ending, of course, you know, and in a very compact manners. That's why I thought that we will perform this first of your piece. And
thank you.
always it. And technically, I mean, it challenges the wind players in a way, all the 16th notes and everything. But luckily, we have a great wind section and a great brass section that we have. So thank you about talking about Phoenix. But you are a very prolific composer. I mean, you're constantly, and your piece is getting performed constantly too. And you have, I think, attended most of those performances, right?
So as I try to get to as many as I can, because I like to be, I love to hear my music live, of course, but I also, I like to connect with the audiences. And
Yeah, I
I
think.
like to
Yeah.
meet them, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, finish.
I
Yeah.
like to meet them. I like to get to know the musicians. I like to talk to people at intermission or whatever. And I always hear such interesting things from audience members. They'll ask me questions about it, or they'll talk about different imagery that comes up in their mind. So I like to do that.
That's great because it is indeed really enhance the concert if we have a living composer in attendance and our audience and the musicians get to meet he or she being there, and it's a wonderful thing. And I always encourage all the composer to be joining us, and
Well,
that's why I kind of choose some more East Coast composers right now for this orchestra.
Well, one of the funny things is, too, sometimes people will be surprised. Like I've had audience members tell me, or bring their kids up and look, it's a living composer.
Yeah. I kind of like to emphasize that part. We do have a living composers, and where it is worth performing their pieces too. So I do often include living composers piece, and of course I have to take care of women composers also. You know. So, any case, you are a professor at the Westminster College. How much of a working load do you have there?
So I'm very fortunate, actually. I teach 3 courses a semester, so it's not too bad. And we're very supportive. The college is actually very supportive of us as faculty, getting our creative work and our scholarship. For me, it's creative work, going out and doing it, because they realize that in order to to be a good teacher to your students, you have to actually be doing the work in the field, and they've done that. So I'm very fortunate in that. And for the most part, I haven't had to take too much time out of teaching. I don't have to actually stop my classes. So I maybe miss a Friday here or there, but most of the time I'm just able to get out on, and then most of the concerts are on the weekend. So I'm
Uh,
pretty
that's
fortunate.
it's wonderful for the students that you're so devoted to them and to the school, of course. They should realize that very much. And I'm sure they're happy that your piece is getting performed everywhere.
Well,
And
yeah, and I appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so, any case, you had a recent premiere of a cello concerto, right? Can you tell us about it a little bit?
Yes, so this is called The Guises of Love. It is a cello concerto. It is inspired by the Dvorak cello
Mm.
concerto. Um, it is written for Mark Kossower, who is the principal cellist of the Cleveland Orchestra, who is one of the most incredible cellists I've ever heard. And I have heard Yo-Yo Ma and Truls Muirk and others, and they're wonderful cellists. But Mark is, in my opinion, he's right up there.
I agree. Yeah, it's
And
wonderful.
so when I thought I've always wanted to write a cello concerto, and I thought who better than to get to know than Mark. And so we got to know each other over the pandemic. I go to Cleveland Orchestra concerts fairly regularly. It's only an hour and a half away from where I live. And he and I both had coffee one time, and we talked about how much we both adore the Dvorak by a
Mm.
cello concerto,
Mhm.
and how wonderful would it be to have a 21st century cello concerto that has some, has new approaches to harmony, but still has the same melodic spirit of the Dvorak. And in particular, too, the fact that Dvorak's concerto was at least somewhat about unrequited love. He was in love with his sister-in-law before he married his wife, but it was never returned. And then she passed away, and the end of the last movement, where the cello and the violin duet happens, is like as an elegy to her. And so we discussed that and we thought, a cello concerto on the theme of love. Mine is about the many faces of love. So it's about the infatuation, yes, but it's also about grief. The second movement is about when love does not have an outlet. And so that's what grief is. And then the third movement, we get away from that. We're back to intoxication and happiness. So I like to create musical narratives through the music, and it seemed like the theme of love was a wonderful way of doing that.
Definitely seems love is really popular in a way. People could relate. But well, recently we had so many cello soloists play practically all that concerto for cellos, but maybe in near future we might consider it to bring it piece here. But any case, some things in the process, how you compose. When do you usually have a time to compose? When do you usually, in the morning, evening, or whenever?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Because Mala used to compose it in the very morning and the summertime mostly,
He's again one of my absolute favorites. If I could have a composing hut on the Bay or in Toblach, Austria, I would totally spend my summers in the Alps and compose in the morning too, and then hike it. I am not so fortunate, but what I do instead is in the mornings, in the summers, yes, the mornings are my best time. When I'm teaching, I block away time around my teaching schedule. I usually get an hour to two in per day. Just like any professional musician, the people who perform on their instruments, you need to practice. You practice every day. You practice for an hour or two or more, depending on the circumstances. So that's what I do. So it's usually earlier in the day when I'm fresh. And then there's another time later on in the evening when I can sometimes do other kinds of work. My most creative times happen in the mornings. But I can be flexible when I need to be. And then, there's also the grunt work of composition where, you have to make sure all the parts are perfect and the dynamics and all that, and you can sort of do that whenever. Then there's also marketing, and you've got to, and that's another whole side of the job. So.
Well, that's important because you have to let people know that you exist and you have been writing good pieces. And I think you're doing a great job in that marketing part too, in a way, in a very good sense. And
well, we try to work on that, and no one trains you to do that in music school as much, or at least not when I went through. Maybe a little more nowadays, but and you just sort of have to learn and study it and figure it out, and it's part of the job. And yeah, people have age.
Yeah, you're very much right as a musician, especially classical musicians. The components of marketing yourself is very important for the successful career. I was never taught that in school either, because I had to learn myself everything. But especially a composer who's spending a lot of time in his or her room writing, it's just very difficult to go market yourself too. But I think you have found a way to do, spreading the great news about yourself to the world now, and I hope it's going to be more successful as time comes. Do you live in Pennsylvania? Yeah. So, but you have a time to go to a big city like Pittsburgh and Cleveland.
Yes.
Yeah. And do you Do you listen to other living composers' piece? Have a chance to listen to?
Yeah, so I am based a little more out in the country, but having access to both the Pittsburgh Symphony, that's only an hour south of me.
I see.
So I have Pittsburgh Symphony, I have Youngstown Symphony, only a half an hour west of me, I'm sorry, and then the Cleveland Orchestra. And so between Pittsburgh and Cleveland, this region here, I mean, we have world-class orchestras whenever
Yes.
we want.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like living on the East Coast. And so they have world premieres all the time. I'm constantly hearing the new music that they program. They program people who are local to their community or people who have international reputations. I'm particularly keen on the music of four composers that really come to mind right now. I absolutely love the music of Jennifer Higdon, particularly concertos. I love her concertos very much. I also I'm a fan of Jessie Montgomery. I think she's been doing some incredible compositions. I love the music of Eino Juhani Rautavaara. He recently passed
Yes.
away.
Yeah.
Finnish composer. But his symphonies, his Eighth Symphony, oh my God, is amazing. I haven't heard him performed as much in the States, so he may be one for people to discover. There was another composer I wanted to mention, but it left out of my head. But I think it gives you an idea of, there's some absolute wonderful composers living nowadays that I'm really excited about.
That's wonderful. And finally, your family. Is your wife a musician or?
Yeah. So I have my wife and my two daughters. My wife is also a professional musician. She is a professor of orchestra and violin here at Westminster. So we are very, very fortunate. We both got jobs in the same place.
Yes.
Although that wasn't the easiest thing to pull off, I'll tell you that. And so she's a violinist. So what I'll do, it's great to have a violinist in the family.
Yes. Yeah.
I will write something and I'll say, okay, look at this, Melinda. Can you tell me, do I need to revise something here? Are they going to just hate me? and then she'll say, yeah, you need to change that. Don't do that. And then, or I'll ask her, how does it fit on the finger? And she, well, it depends. It also depends on the level of your group and, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's great to have that. And then with my daughters, they're both musically inclined. It's really wonderful. One's 9 and one is 7. And we started them on piano when they're 5. And so working with them with piano lessons, and they're taking from faculty member here at the college. So we feel very fortunate to have little pianists and also violin they're interested in. So
that's great. Yeah. It is so important to have some consultation you could do with, especially violin and orchestras, really predominantly string player. So, because sometimes I hear from our concertmaster when we're playing some new pieces, this is not really a string piece. It cannot write it. It's just a piano. It's easy like this, but to play the violin it's difficult.
And I am a pianist at first too. So yeah, I constantly am asking people.
That's great. That's wonderful. Yeah, even Brahms asked, Joachim how to write his concerto too. So, yeah. Well, thank you so much, Dan. Are there anything you could especially like to say to the audience before you come?
Yeah. First of all, I can't wait to hear this. And I'm really excited to share. I think it's really important for new music nowadays to reach people. I think we live in a time now where composers are writing music that tells a story more and more in languages that people can really relate to. And I think you know, I think it's an exciting time to get to know music by living composers, because there's a lot of really powerful music out there written in ways where you don't have to feel like you just don't know what's going on. So I'm looking forward to making that connection with everyone.
Well, we are excited also to perform your powerful Phoenix by Dan Perttu. And yeah, so please attend this closing concert, April 27th, and the Garde Art Center at 7:30 p.m. And meet our composer, Dan Perttu also. There'll be a reception afterwards, so also you could attend and then talk to him especially then as well. So thank you, Dan, for being here, and then I'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you.